Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining in tonight. I'm going to do a little more studying toward my extra class, so come on and study along with me. Again, I'll be using the Gordon West study book for 2020 to 2024 for the amateur extra class element. So let me transition here to the overhead and we'll get right into it. All right. So we can see here, and the last one we'd finished up one of the other sections. So the section we'll be starting with is outer space comms. Sounds like an interesting topic. So we'll go through 10 to 15 questions and see where we end up from there. So first question here for outer space comms. Which amateur stations are eligible to operate as Earth stations? Is it A, any amateur station whose license has filed a pre-space notification with the FCC International Bureau? B, only those of general, advanced, or amateur class operators? C, only those of amateur extra class operators? Or D, any amateur station subject to the privileges of the class of the operator license held by the control operator? I'm thinking it sounds like D to me. Let me see if we can focus in here a little better. So, an amateur Earth station is located down here on planet Earth, operating as an Earth station for space communications, is available to all amateurs. Be sure to use only those frequency privileges allowed by your license class. So the correct answer is D. All right. Our next question here. What is a space telecommand station? An amateur station located on the surface of the Earth for communication with other Earth stations by means of Earth satellites. B, an amateur station that transmits communications to initiate, modify, or terminate functions of space station. C, an amateur station located in a satellite or a balloon more than 50 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. Or D, an amateur station that receives telemetry from a satellite or balloon more than 50 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. I'm going to say B. Telecommand means initiating, modifying, or terminating a function of another station, such as a space station. Correct answer is B. Okay. Boy, it just does not want to focus very well tonight. I apologize, folks. Trying to get a good focus so you can read too with me. Seems the sweet spot is right in here, but it keeps staying a little, just slightly blurry. Okay. Which amateur stations are eligible to be telecommand stations of space stations, subject to the privileges of class of operator license held by the control operator station? A. Any amateur station designated by NASA. B. Any amateur station so designated by the space station licensee. C. Any amateur station so designated by the ITU. Or D. All these choices are correct. I'm going to say it's going to be anybody designated by NASA. Any amateur station so designated by the space station licensee may be, okay, space station licensee, okay? So answer is B. Any amateur station so designated by the space station licensee. Hopefully the audio is alright so far tonight. Trying to change up some lighting and tweak some things, still improving the video quality, so I appreciate any feedback there too. What is the definition of telemetry? One-way transmission of measurements at a distance from the measuring instrument. A two-way transmission in excess of 1,000 feet. Two-way transmission of data. One-way transmission that indicates, modifies, or terminates the functions of a device at a distance. I think it's going to be A. We hear the word telemetry in a lot of satellite service. Satellite telemetry may give ground controllers vital information on a satellite battery power, power loads, and satellite solar power charging. Telemetry is a one-way transmission of measurement at a distance from the measurement instrument. So it is A. The definition of telemetry is a one-way transmission of measurements at a distance from the measuring instrument. All right, next question. Hope everybody's having a good weekend so far, and I hope everybody down in Texas is in all the regions in that area that were affected by the snowstorm are doing better, I hope. What must be posted at a station location of a station being operated by Telecommand on or within 50 kilometers of the Earth's surface? A photocopy of the station license. B, a label with the name, address, and telephone number of the station licensee. A label with the name, address, and telephone number of the control operator. All these are correct. I almost think it's D. The FCC rules tell us that an amateur radio station may be a space station, and any amateur radio station may be a telecommand station. This is great news for any experimental-minded radio amateur or radio club. If you operate a telecommand station, the station must have posted a photograph or photocopy of the station license and a label with the name, address, and telephone number of the station licensee and control operator, both of which may be the same person. So all these choices are correct. An amateur radio station is not generally required to have these documents, as there is often no way to put such documents on a space-restricted satellite or other spacecraft. Not to mention it would be difficult for the FCC to read them. All right, next question. Which of the following may transmit special codes intended to obscure the meaning of messages? Telecommand signals from a space station, a space telecommand station. Data containing personal information. Auxiliary relay links carrying repeater audio. Binary control characters. I think it's going to be A. Encrypted amateur radio communications are strictly forbidden except for one special case. Telecommands from a space station may be encrypted to prevent unauthorized access to control functions of the spacecraft. Answer is A. All right, next question. What are the Keplerian elements? Parameters that define the orbit of the satellite. Phase reversing elements in the Yagi antenna. High emission heater filaments used in magnetron tubes. Or D, encrypting codes used to spread spectrum modulation. I believe it's A. Keplerian elements, or KEPs, named after Renaissance astronomer Johannes Kepler, are standardized sets of data to help you find a particular satellite in the sky, as well as telling you which direction it's moving. KEPs are regularly broadcast or emailed from Whiskey 1 Alpha Whiskey and other sources. Many computer programs are capable of accepting the KEPs and automatically steering your antenna, but a lot of folks still work with them manually to help find their favorite bird. Answer is A. Okay, so I kind of showed a little something on a phone here. So you can use your smartphone apps to access computer programs and websites that show you where and when an amateur satellite or space station will be in range of your ham station. Okay, yep, and this is just a little good to know. Where is the amateur satellite? AMSAT is the North American distributor of SAT PC32, a tracking program designed for ham satellite applications. It has a host of features that help you locate and track amateur satellites, set your antenna rotor for automatic control, and provides visual mapping of satellite locations as they orbit the Earth. You can download a demo version from www.dk1tb.de/indexeng.htm. So there you go. All right, next question here, folks. What is the direction of an ascending pass for amateur satellite? A, from west to east. B, from east to west. C, from south to north. Or D, from north to south. I'm not totally sure on that. I don't know if I've ever seen anything on that. For some reason I'm leaning to east to west, but I'm not positive. I've never really heard on it. Okay, some satellites travel over the equator from north to south, descending, while others pass over the equator from south to north, ascending. Direction, height, and speed all affect where a satellite is at a specific time. It is easy to remember if you think of the North Pole as being at the top of the Earth. So it's C, from south to north for an ascending. I was kind of picturing in my hand, you look at the globe and you always see the rings that they show for satellites. It always feels like it's kind of more of a east to west, west to east, but sounds like ascending is south to north and descending is north to south. So our next question here. What type of satellite appears to stay in one position in the sky? A, an HEO, B, a geostationary, C, a geomagnetic, or D, a LEO? Well, I'm not going to guess at that one because I'm just not sure. Oop. A satellite in a geostationary orbit remains in one place above the Earth. No tracking necessary. You always know where it'll be. Geostationary. I just didn't want to say it and be foolish, so to speak, but obvious answer was the correct one. So the correct answer is B, geostationary. Good to know here. Geostationary or geosynchronous kind of shows a little bit of a detail here of some satellites and what have you. Get a little screenshot of that there for you. So that is that. So our next question here. What is meant by the term mode as applied to amateur radio satellite? Is it A, whether the satellite is in a low Earth or geostationary orbit? B, the satellite's uplink and downlink frequency bands? C, the satellite's orientation with respect to the Earth? Or D, whether the satellite is in a polar or equatorial orbit? I'm going to say the uplink and downlink. B, satellite's uplink and downlink frequency bands. Working through amateur satellites is exciting, challenging, and fun. Transmit and receive frequencies for satellite operators are on separate bands. The satellite receives on one frequency band and transmits on another. Since two bands are involved, we have two mode designators. The best mode designators to best describe the transmit and receive bands. Each band has its own designator. Excuse me. All right. The Earth's transmit band is called the uplink, and the receive band is the downlink. So the correct answer is B, uplink and downlink frequency bands. That is your modes. Ready to hear spacecraft data beacon? There are plenty on the air and every day all over the world as they fly by. Everybody with some homemade Yagis or tape measure antennas. Alright, next question here. What do the letters in a satellite's mode designator specify? A, power limits for uplink and downlink transmissions. The location of the ground control station. The polarization of uplink and downlink signals. Or D, the uplink and downlink frequency ranges. I'm not sure. The two mode designators indicate the transmit uplink frequency and the receive downlink frequency band that satellite uses. So the answer is D for that. What do the terms L-band and S-band specify regarding satellite communications? A, the 23 centimeter and 13 centimeter bands. B, the 2 meter and 70 centimeter bands. C, FM and digital store and forward systems. Or D, which sidebands to use. I want to say it's B, 2 meter and 70 cm, but some reason I'm thinking it might even be D. You can work this out by recalling the megahertz to meters and meters to megahertz formula. But there are lots of conversions because we are working with centimeters and gigahertz. The L band is at 1.26 gigahertz, works out to be 23 centimeters, and the S band at 2.4 gigahertz works out to be 13 centimeters. So I learned something there. You can rule out answer B, as that would be VHF and UHF, with C and D having nothing to do with band specifics. 23 centimeters is L band, 13 centimeters is S band. Correct answer is A. Little hiccup here, it looks like, for YouTube. Alright, so kind of shows a little breakdown of the modes and modules there. So that gives one. Well, I think we'll stop there for the night. Gone through about a dozen of the questions for outer space comms, so I think that's a good stopping point to continue on there on the next time I go for the next session. So all right, well, thank you everybody for joining in and studying along with me. I hope you're finding this series of videos helpful. It's definitely helpful for myself as I'm going through. I'm definitely learning, and I think reading it aloud and going over it like that is actually helping me retain some of the information. So please join in with me. Love some interaction, feedback, even if there's people that are live with me that are guessing at the answers before we reveal the correct one, whichever kind of works. So again, thank you all for watching and coming along with me. And as always, get on the air.